Hey everyone, Piano Man Chuck here, and today I want to talk about something a little bit different. Now, when I try to write a song, one of the first things I come up with, and again, this is not a piano song, but basically a song with a bunch of instruments, one of the first things I come up with is a bass line. So even Michael Jackson, when he came up with this, you got to come up with an interesting bass line, and it's got to sound right, and it's got to be played right. Now, you can use an instrument like a keyboard like this that has a bass built in to try and come up with a good bass riff. All right, whatever. But when you have something where you can control a bass with a keyboard just as well as a bass player can with their bass, in fact, even better. Now, that's something. Now, IK Multimedia actually has a new bass software program that does exactly that. And it's not sampled, it is actually physically modeled, which is even better because with physically modeling, you can control everything. You can control the thickness of the strings, you can control what type of bass, what kind of sound, everything. So let me go into the demonstration right now. Alright, so we just fired up MODO BASS in full screen mode so we can see everything that's going on. And this is how it looks when it first comes up. So let's start out with an overview of everything, and that means starting out with the top line over here. Save as, and delete. It's pretty obvious when you save a file or save as a different name or want to delete it. So over here you got three icons for information. It just tells you a little bit about the product. We have version 1.0.0 here, so this is the very first initial release of it, and you can't get any newer than this. Alright, and this lock icon, then the gear icon, of course, is for setting up preferences and all that stuff. We've got audio/MIDI, and we've got MODO BASS. So in the audio/MIDI, the technology we're using is Windows Audio as opposed to these other two that are on my device. And whatever you click on this, you may have different things pop up, and it's specific to your system. So in my system, this is what I get, and I'm using Windows Audio. I am using this as a standalone program at the moment. You can use this as a plug-in for your DAW or digital audio workstation, and that's really cool. And I'm actually using a Casio Privia PX560 for my MIDI controller. But you can use whatever is set up for your equipment, or you can use the built-in keyboard over here. Alright, and on the MODO BASS over here, you actually have a velocity curve. And these are like velocity settings, just like on a piano. So if I'm playing the keyboard over here, this is set at 50. And with the same amount of pressure, if I put this on 0, it's a lot lighter. And if I put this at the max, with the same amount of pressure, it's like playing it a lot harder. So you can set it up anywhere from 0 to 100. I want to keep it right in the middle there at 60, which is the default, or excuse me, 50, which is the default. And you got the pole velocity threshold, 0 to 127. I'm in the United States, so I'm used to using inches, but if you're somewhere else, you can choose centimeters. Okay, so that takes care of this gear icon. Now, all the rest of these things are the type of different basses that you can get to, and whatever bass you choose, it's going to show that bass right here in the main picture, and it's going to show you all the default settings over here. And even if you change things, you can always click on this reset bass to default. Now, there's a bunch of different basses, and right now we are looking at a 60s P bass. That's the model. This tab gives you all the different models. 70s P bass. Now, watch what happens down here when we click on the next model. Things change to represent what this model actually defaults to. Different types of things like the model, the strings, string winding, string gauge, the age, scale, frets, action, circuitry, pickup B, pickup N, piezo, and we'll get into all of these as we go along, but just to show you the different types of bass guitars, let's go ahead. 70s J bass, that's over here. If you want to see anything more particular, because we're going to go a little bit fast, you can always pause the screen so you can see what's going on here. Modern J bass, and again, all of these things you can alter, and we'll get along with that as we go on in the video. Devil bass, Bassman 5, Ricken bass, and you'll notice this little thing that spins here. Every time we choose something or anything, once that's completed, this will disappear, but while it's working on it, you'll see a little thing spinning around here. Studio bass, there we go, you can see that there. Violin bass, Thunder bass, and there's a little bit more. Japan bass, and that's pretty much it for the different types of basses. So let's start with a 60s P bass, and let's go over to the play style. You know what, before we do that, let's go down here. Now, the white keys over here shows you the range of a bass guitar, especially the one that's on this display right now. So you have the E that's just above the C1 key, all the way up to the D that's right next to the C4 key. So you can do that here on the keyboard, or I can play it with my mouse. And if I'm doing it with my mouse, basically if I hit it near the end of the key, that's as loud as it gets. The closer I go towards the inside of the key, the softer it gets. And the same thing with the black notes too. Okay, and I can also play the actual string here. Not only that, I can actually slide it, and I can go up and down. It's really cool, but it's best if you play it on a physical controller, piano, keyboard. You have a little bit more control. I mean, if you're going to play a riff here, see, I can't even get the right notes. But if you're doing that with a piano keyboard, you get a lot more control. Now, you can't see my piano keyboard controller here because I don't have a camera on that at the moment, but basically it is so much easier to work with that. Alright, so let's continue on. The next tab over here is Play Style. Alright, now you can play a bass guitar one of three different ways. Finger it, pick it, or slap it. Right now it's set for fingering. And if I pick, so you can hear a difference there. And slap, you'll hear a difference there too. Now let's go back to finger, and you'll notice these controls over here and selections, those correlate with the finger setting. With the finger setting you have mute. Let's show you this. Okay, and you have the type of stroke. There's an alternate stroke, there's an index, there's a middle, and we get back to alternate touch. We have it set for normal right now. This is hard. This is soft. This is normal. Now, this touch is similar to what we just showed you with the velocity settings in the beginning, but it's basically three different predetermined settings that you can get to immediately rather than trying to choose something between the numbers of 0 and 127 or 0 and 100, whatever it happened to be. Let ring, that's off right now, but if I turn it on, it's like the sustain pedal of a piano. It'll go on forever until it naturally decays, so. And we'll turn it off. Fingering, first position, easy. Nearest. And I think that's more geared towards playing it down here. And back to first position. Open string is off right now. Now we turn it on. Off. Detach noise and slide noise. A slide is a really good one because if you look over here, muting, if I step on the damper or sustain pedal, the moment I step on it, you'll see slide come into play. And when I release the pedal, slide comes off. Now let me show you what happens. If I go from E to B, now watch the same thing when I turn on the sustain pedal. Okay? Hang on a sec. There we go. So I can slide. Now, in order to slide, not only do I have to hold down the sustain pedal, I have to keep holding down the first note that I'm playing and the second. If I let go of the first before I hit the second, nothing. So you have to hold that down and then play this. So that's really cool. And over here, you can adjust the slide noise when you're using it in that fashion. Very cool, right? Detach noise. Alright, so let's go on to the next setting, or the next tab, which is strings. Alright, and this is what's really cool about physical modeling. You can basically change any of the physical aspects here on the fly. Right now, this is a 4-string guitar, or bass guitar. And we can change that to a 4 drop D, and we can actually add a 5th string, and you'll see that the 5th string came into play here. This won't change because that is the default picture of the guitar, but when you add a 5th string, that changes here. And again, you can play it with or here, or on the keyboard. Okay, very cool. So when you're on the strings thing, the string, let's go back to the default of 4. These are the different kinds of things that you can adjust when you're in the string tab. Now the action is set for standard right now. We can change it to high and low and back to standard. Now I am not a bass guitarist, so I'm not sure what this actually changes. All I know is I just know what I like to hear, and that's what whatever I set this up to be, as long as I like it, that's what I'm going to go with. Now, the type of string, this is set for round wound right now. So you have a round string that's wound. You can change it to a flat wound string. So you can hear the difference here. The gauge, you can actually change the string gauge. Right now it's medium, heavy, light, medium. Now the age, that's an interesting one. Broken in, that's basically, you get a new guitar, you play it for a while, you finally broke it in, that's what this is. Or you can make it old. You've been playing it for a long time and it's become like a comfortable friend. Here we go. a brand new guitar. We're not going to change this. We're in the United States, so we use A440 for tuning. Next tab, electronics. All right, and this is a really cool thing because this is the bridge and the neck pickups. Basically, here we go. We can move this. Alright, now that's the bridge one here. And we can move that independent of the neck pickups. So you got a lot of play here, and you'll notice that these measurements over here are in inches, going back to the initial gear settings for setting everything up. I'm in the United States, I'm used to using inches, so I've set it up for inches, but you're in the UK or practically anywhere else in the world, you can set it up for centimeters. Now, the bridge and neck, you can change these things. Look at all these different configurations that you can change these to. Hey, this is really something. It is really amazing. Blows me away the kind of stuff that you can do. Okay? All these different bridge pickups. And the same thing with the neck too. And you got a couple more settings here too. Alright, now for each one of those, bridge and neck, they have a corresponding volume control for each one of these. Really cool. And a piezo effect too as well. The circuit, you can have it passive, which is what it is now, and you can control the tone with this one knob. But if you change it to active, now you've got a 3-band EQ that you can use to set your EQ with bass, middle, and treble. Go to the amp and effects. Got a really nice picture of a couple of different amps here. One's a tube amp and one is solid state. And actually here is where you can change those settings. You can use a tube amp, and these are the controls that you have on that amplifier when you're using a tube amp. You know, the gain, bass, mid, and treble, and you got a sweepable mid-range where you set the frequency over here, the punch, harmony, amplifier, DI, and master. Okay, so we're just going to go through all this so that you can see basically what you get. Now if I change this to a tube amp, oh, I was on tube, change it to solid state, now we've got some other stuff over here. We still have the gain, the bass, middle, and treble, but now we've got a graphic EQ over here. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-band graphic EQ, so you can actually shape the sound EQ-wise with much more accuracy than you could with the tube amp. And then you got limiter, amp, DI, and master again. And then we've got the control over here, and this is an interesting one because when you're using a keyboard and you're on stage and you're trying to play this bass, what you can do is instead of having a mouse in your other hand and looking at the screen, you can set it up so that these keys down here will represent the changes to let ring, force string, ham on, pull off, force D string, force E string, harmonics, force G string, force A string, slap, pick, finger, middle stroke, index, and go. So depending on which one of these keys you hit, it's the same thing as like coming into a menu over here and choosing that instead. So this is really one cool program, and I'll tell you, trying to come up with a bass line That's one thing, given the bass that's available on your keyboard or whatever. But when you use physical modeling, I mean, you can come up with anything. I mean, this program just blows me away. Anyway, this has kind of been the intro to this or overview. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Wow. I mean, that is really something. So I hope that's helped you out because I am blown away by that. Piano Man Chuck. Peace out. Thanks for watching.